Nicolette Waldman is the lead author of that report. She joins me now from London. Good to speak to you. So Amnesty has released reports in the past, including in August, about treatment of prisoners and casualty numbers. What makes this report different?
What we documented in this report over the course of 1 year is that the government is carrying out mass hangings. So they are taking people out of their cells every week and sometimes twice a week into another building on the premises of Sednaya prison and hanging them to death. During this process, which takes place in the middle of the night and in total secrecy, they are blindfolded and they don't actually know how or when they will die until the nooses are placed around their necks.
So the report says as many as 13,000 people, most of them civilian opposition supporters, have been executed in secret at a prison in Syria. What is this report based on? What evidence?
We spent 1 year researching this report, and during the course of that year, we interviewed 84 witnesses. These witnesses included former guards and former officials from Sednaya, as well as detainees who have survived and witnessed various stages of the execution process. We also interviewed former judges, as well as former Syrian lawyers who helped us corroborate this overall picture. And many of these interviews, we actually did maybe 2, 3, even more interviews to evaluate the veracity of what people were telling us, as well as the consistency. And finally, we built a step-by-step picture of what is happening with these hangings and also what the government is doing to deliberately inflict inhuman conditions on detainees, which is also causing massive numbers of deaths at Sednaya and across Syrian state prisons.
So can you tell us more about the interviews of the detainees and witnesses in the prison and of their accounts? What conditions were they in? How did you speak to them?
We heard from 31 detainees. Most of these detainees were based in southern Turkey, and we conducted in-person interviews. And the rest we conducted remotely in with people who were still inside of Syria, as well as people who were in Lebanon, Jordan, the US, and Europe. And what was so chilling about what the detainees were telling us was how consistent every single step of when they first enter, the certain torture that they go through, and then this set of very sadistic rules that they are forced to obey. One of these rules that they're forced to stay silent at all times, even during torture. Another rule is that they are forced to pick somebody in the cell, a detainee, who actually is made to pick somebody who will be tortured each day in the cell. There is also repeated beating and systematic deprivation of food, water, and medicine, so that people are actually dying horrible deaths, but completely treatable deaths in these prisons.
So do you believe that executions are still taking place?
The last witness testimony that we were able to obtain was in December 2015. However, there is no reason that we have to believe that these practices have stopped. We know that people are still being transferred to Sednaya prison. We know that these farcical procedures, or the Syrian authorities would call them trials, but we would call them basically the logging of a name onto a death registry. We know that all of these systems are still in place, so it's very likely that these hangings are taking place this week or even today.
Syria talks in Astana, and trilateral agreement was reached on monitoring the ceasefire, and it seemed promising. And now this report, does that mean UN can carry out an investigation, or what should be done next?
What should be done immediately is for the UN to carry out an independent and thorough investigation into these war crimes and these crimes against humanity committed at Sednaya. And for that investigation to take place, we will need the Syrian government to open its doors to independent monitors. We need to be sure that these monitors are allowed into the prisons across Syria. And for that to happen, the UN Security Council must insist that the Syrian authorities cooperate, and in particular, the US and Russia must use their influence to do everything they can to make sure we investigate these crimes, get access to the prisons and bring these perpetrators to account.
Nicolette Waldman, thank you for joining us here on TRT World.